Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of our brand new show, Food Coma, the show in which we basically take a game and dissect it, spoiler it, and just go as far as we can into figuring out everything we want to talk about with this game. That we can do this with new games, old games, any game that we ever want to talk about. We are ready to talk Food Coma and just talk it to oblivion. Joining me today, I got my boy Bench.
Hello, happy to be here.
We
Fucking
also are
work, dude,
joined.
bro. Every fucking time, I swear to God.
Dark, you don't need to. This is Dark.
You know who I am. Hey, how's it going?
This guy sucks. And then we're joined by our special guest today, BenjiBop.
Hey, so Doug Bowser couldn't make it, so I always fill in for the executives that didn't, ghosted them on their podcast invites. So happy to be back.
I'm very happy to be here. Well, very happy for you to be here, and I'm also
thanks.
happy to be here.
I
guess
forgot they fucking do this for the job, bro.
Okay, they're quiet. We're gonna move in onto the actual discussion. The game we're actually tackling today is The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. We all beat it. We all did as much as we could in it that we wanted to do, and I obviously want to talk all about it. But first, I do want to mention where you can find us. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, and Audible. Please like the podcast. We're still growing. We want to grow faster, and any type of support helps immensely. And we also have a Twitter account, twitter.com/sliceofgaming. Should be linked in the description as well. But yeah, now that all that's, I guess we're just gonna go right into it. Like,
Full
what are our thoughts on
spoilers.
full spoiler? Hey,
Full-
I already mentioned that.
Mention again, last chance.
Yeah, it's a good idea to double down on that.
You're right. Full spoilers as much as possible. I guess we're just gonna go right into it. I guess I'll immediately jump into our guest, Benji. What did you think of Tears of the Kingdom?
Wow, I get to go first. So I guess I'll say that I put about 90 hours into it, and I want to say I did about 2/3 of all the content. But top level thoughts. I don't have the biggest history with Zelda. I've only played Breath of the Wild, this one, and Link to the Past. But my biggest thing is that this game just, for me at least, clicked in every way that Breath of the Wild didn't, and I just thought was very well done, both from a story perspective, from a gameplay perspective, from a technical perspective, still running on the Switch, and I just thought pretty much was just an upgrade in every possible way that I didn't even think was possible, and couldn't have been happier with it. So definitely a 10 out of 10 for me.
Hey, that's awesome to hear. I'm gonna immediately jump right into our resident Zelda expert, Bench. I guess real quick, Bob kind of mentioned this earlier, but like history with the franchise as well. We'll throw that into it as well, like history with Zelda and your thoughts on Tears of the Kingdom overall.
Played pretty much most Zeldas, and I am very fond of the series, and I loved Breath of the Wild. So with Tears of the Kingdom, I was counting down the years, months, and days up until launch, and I finished it at about 90 hours, doing all of the light routes, all the shrines, pretty much besides Korok seeds, pretty much everything the game has to offer, and I came away blown away. This game was an absolute masterpiece, and I still think about it and how it was even possible in the end. And I do love it more than Breath of the Wild. It's my favorite Zelda game, and probably my favorite game of all time, looking back on it a month after I beat it. And I'd give it a 10 out of 10 as well. I just loved everything about it.
That's awesome to hear. Dark, same question to you.
Yeah, similarly to the bench, I've played just about every single title, besides like a few of the DS ones, like Spirit Tracks and stuff. But yeah, it's impressive what they were able to do with Zelda. It's no secret that mainline Zelda titles always come out of nowhere with some crazy idea and knock it out the park, for the most part. But they really went all out for this game, and it's truly something to see.
That's awesome to hear. I guess for me, just in general, I also kind of share the sentiment with all of you. Just I absolutely loved the game, had a great time. My history with Zelda is kind of similar to Bench, where I played almost all of them at this point. And yeah, I'm fond of the series, not nearly as much as other people, but I still am a Zelda fan. You know, I still consider myself like more so of a casual fan, if anything else, but definitely a fan of the series. But I guess just like in general with Tears of the Kingdom, it was pretty much just the sequel to Breath of the Wild, which is a game I also love. And I think that just surpassed it in every way possible. I would also give it that 10 out of 10 masterpiece. I think this is a game that will be talked about for years to come, just for the amount of innovations that it brought upon to the series and just open world games in general. And that there's so many aspects to it that I just don't even know where to start. I guess like I'll immediately start like, what is your guys' favorite part about this game, whether a gameplay part, dungeon, anything like that? The floor is open.
I'll go first. I think I loved Breath of the Wild, but it always felt empty. In this world, Tears of the Kingdom's world feels truly lived in every sense of the word. There's always things to do, people to meet. Something also cool is they recognize you because it's a sequel that you are Link. You are established in this world as the hero of Hyrule, and that comes with all different things, whether it be the Yiga clan knowing who you are and not liking you even more, or people always mentioning you when you walk by. People know you and you're established. And like I said, the world feels lived in. There's always something to do. It's crammed full with amazing content. Someone else?
Yeah, no, I mean the world in general is definitely one of those things that I feel like a lot of people could talk about. Just how big and expansive it is, and just how much they expanded upon it in this game in particular. I mean, Benji, do you have any thoughts on the world?
Yeah, I think that kind of plays into my favorite bit where I love a game where you have your main objective, right? And you take like 5,000 detours on your way to that objective. And that's what I think this game does really, really well, is that every sort of objective or place of interest or town or even just places around the world, they just keep putting that carrot on a stick in front of you, be like, oh, you gotta go check that out, oh, you gotta go check that out. And then little do I know, 4 hours went by. It's 2 a.m. I need to go to bed because I have work the next day. I'm like, yeah, but I see that shrine over there. I just got to beat that shrine. And then on the way to that shrine, I like get into like a huge fight with one of the mini bosses in the world, and then I go and find like treasure nearby, and maybe there's one of the holes that go down to, why is the name escaping me? The depths, yeah. And it's just that it is very rare nowadays, I feel like, to have these open worlds that are so concentrated and dense and like well meticulated. And I can't give this game enough props for just constantly like just engaging me and keeping my attention, and making me want to play more of it and explore.
Yeah, I mean that feeling of like wanting to see the next thing around the corner, that it's very similar to a Bethesda game. Like obviously we talked a lot about Starfield in our meal prep episode, but like that kind of same experience, I got a lot of that magic with Tears of the Kingdom. That one more thing, where's that in the distance? That I fully agree with you that that's pretty much my favorite aspect of the world. I mean, Dark, did you have anything to add on?
Yeah, speaking of the world, especially, it's really like I don't even know how to, like they managed to pull it off because Breath of the Wild is the world is pretty much reused, but they've done so much to it that it feels pretty much brand new. Like even when you go back to old locations where those things are in the same location more or less, things are drastically different, and it's like re-experiencing the game all over again. It's really wild how they were able to do that. And granted, the game did take a super long time to develop, but even then, I still find it impressive how they were able to pull it off.
Yeah, I mean, like you build off a base of something that's already there. Like we saw in the past how that works, with a Ubisoft game, like how they handle with a, Far Cry 5 to Far Cry New Dawn. And that's kind of seen as a negative, but I feel like Tears of the Kingdom made it work because they added new aspects to the world. There's so much to change there that just exploring the world now feels different than it did. What was it like 6 years ago from Breath of the Wild?
Oh, can
That's
I add
just
to
an
that?
impressive thing. Yeah, go for it.
I think something that also made a big difference is you have a different tool set than you did in from Breath of the Wild. I mean, which looking at it, you have to explore the same world, sure, part of it in a completely different way. That so it feels new to explore with new stuff in it.
Yeah, man, I'm right there with you. Just in general, like the amount of stuff you can do in this game is also dictated by the tools that you're given. Like I know Jeff Grubb always talks about like how the tools that you're given in this world are kind of the aspect that make Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom even more so special, is just utilizing the tools in the sandbox environment and seeing what exactly you can do with it. And I guess that's a great transition into kind of like just the tools in general. Like, what was y'all's favorite like new ability? Obviously, we have Ascend, Fuse, Ultra Hand, all that. Like, Bench, what about like going right into you?
I think Ascend is my favorite ability. After beating Tears of the Kingdom, I'm constantly thinking about, sure, it would be a technical nightmare. Why doesn't have this game have Ascend? Because it's just so useful, but kind of so minor. But it was just amazing to use and have. I don't know. I just was very fond of Ascend.
Oh no, Ascend was a really cool ability in and of itself. Almost feels like kind of the lesser talked one out of all the abilities. Like even by itself, I feel like you could justify a sequel with just Ascend. Dark, what about you? What's your favorite new ability?
It was definitely like Ultra Hand. The amount of utterly ridiculous things you can do with that, and like you, I feel like I was breaking the game. I was doing so many different things with Ultra Hand. It'd be like, oh wait, if you the fire dungeon, for example, I
Mhm.
you can cheese the ever living shit out of that dungeon and just completely
Oh yeah.
skip like 90 using Ultra Hand, and it's really the game rewards you for doing it. You don't feel dumb. You don't feel punished or anything. It is such an amazing tool.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's just an aspect with the game in general. Like they want you to play it any way you want. That's why they gave you these tools. So, when you see a lot of people talk about like, oh, I feel like I cheated the dungeon or puzzle. I also just have the argument that I feel like the game wants you to do that. They want you to mess around with all these abilities as much as possible to figure out your own solution. And I'm right there with you, Dark. Ultra Hand is easily my favorite. Like just the amount of possibilities that you get from it. I love doing things like I know I could just run across this field and I could get to the destination in like 2 minutes, but I'm gonna build a car so that way I can arrive there in style in 10 minutes. That's kind of just what Ultra Head does. It just lets that creative mind free in a way that I feel like no other game has done for me in quite a while. Benji, what about you?
Yeah, I get it's got to be Ultra Hand. I think just to kind of like add on to that, I think what makes Ultra Hand so great is that creativity, and this can kind of transition us into like the dungeons and problem solving. But for me, I felt like in Breath of the Wild, the abilities in Breath of the Wild are great, and I know like the what was the time stop one?
Stasis.
Forget.
Misa?
Yeah,
That's
like
Misa.
stasis is really cool. Like the magnets were cool, the bombs were cool, but they just felt, even though you could do really cool stuff with them, I feel like I only saw those things on Twitter with Japanese captions, and it's like I'm never going to be able to replicate that. Sorry, that's just not gonna, like, that is a level of skill I don't have. Whereas with Ultra Hand, I think just from a base level, you just like, that's why I think this game clicked for me, because okay, maybe in Breath of the Wild I didn't use stasis or the magnet like they wanted me to, but with Ultra Hand and Tears of the Kingdom, I can basically do whatever I want, and the game is accounting for it, and so it's almost an easier barrier of entry for stuff like temples, where even if you don't know the exact answer that it's trying to do, you can make your own answer that will fit within the confines of that temple. And I think, and then also too, yeah, I think it was you, Wolf, that said the traversal around the map. Just having like I think when people realize like the hover bike with like the control stick and the two fans, and then
Yeah.
if you're underground, you have the light route on it. I mean, I'm sorry, that is so, especially because it's like the horses are great, but I like having an actual vehicle that you can kind of run around. I don't know, it's great. And then like for the Sky Islands too, to be able to traverse from island to island with something like a plane or the hover bike was just, it was great. It just added another level that you couldn't get in Breath of the Wild.
I don't
Oh
know.
yeah, no.
Oh my bad
Oh,
for cutting you off.
go ahead. No.
No,
Transition.
I never really used horses. Like I collected them
In the
for
same,
like
that's
just
what I was gonna say.
like in Breath of the Wild. I didn't use collect horses. I always did everything on foot. I used the like I love
Same.
just being on foot and with the paraglider. And the game like rewarded me with that. Granted, yeah, we didn't have Rivali to go, which was like the most broken thing I've ever seen in my life. But with Ascend, they let you mess around with it in different ways, and it works just as well.
Yeah, it's funny. Rivali's Gale, I didn't really miss it because I had Ascent and also Ultra Hand, and the one ability we didn't really talk about at all. I think that's the only other ability. Fuse. I mean, Fuse by itself, I feel like is such a fascinating ability that I feel like we can even have a full discussion on it. Just the amount of possibilities with it.
I mean, each game could have their own game. Each mechanic could have their own game revolve around them. Is how crazy each and every one of them are.
Yeah,
I will
no, right.
say, like with Fuse, I think my favorite part about it is that it pretty much, and there are still some people that argue this, and I just don't agree. But Fuse, like basically makes weapon degradation a non-issue anymore, and I don't understand why people try and fight that. But for me, I had so many materials that if my sword that I had a silver horn on broke, guess what? I still have 30 of them. I'll just fuse another one real quick. Like it does not bother me. And even if that one breaks, it's like okay, and I run out of those, I still have so many items in my inventory that I can use to fuse that I never felt like weapons. I never felt like I needed to hoard weapons, and I never felt like I needed to like I was struggling to just be like, oh, I need a sword or something. Like just fuse whatever and it'll be fine.
Okay,
Yeah, I
adding on
mean,
to that. Oh, my
Go
bad.
ahead. Go ahead.
I don't know. I feel like that this might be a hot take or anything. I have no issues with weapon degradation or anything, but I feel like they should, especially like the Master Sword. It feels weird that the Master Sword still like shorts out, like it's on like a battery. Especially given like the plot of the game, like I feel like this shouldn't be the case. It would be nice to have at least one weapon that doesn't break or anything. And if for
Like the
whatever
Master Sword.
yeah, and if for whatever reason I don't want to use it, I can swap to the other weapons that break. I feel like that's my only real complaint. Well, there is another complaint I have, but we'll get to that later. But yeah, that
Oh yeah, we're not gonna talk complaints yet, Dark. You know, we got to talk about the good stuff first.
we'll get there.
Oh yeah, we'll get there. What's it called? There was a lot of stuff. I mean, just in general, we can talk about. I guess I'll just bench. Is there another major thing that you really want to talk about?
Yeah, I guess just about the depth, I have something to say. And I don't know, I haven't seen a whole lot of people point this out, but like the depth kind of inverts everything about Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild is always you see somewhere you can go there, and the depth just completely 180s that. And I think that's very cool. What
Yeah,
about y'all?
I really like that. It really was for me, like with like the overworld, you kind of are looking for things to do on your way to the objective. But yeah, you're right. In the depths, I was like, I'm going to that light route, then I'll figure out what's going on around here because I just now granted the the little plants you get definitely help with that and don't necessarily make you reliant on just going from like big route to big route, but I do think to an extent that, especially early on, like I think it flips it on its head perfectly.
I don't know. I feel like the depths, like although I like the depths, but at the same time, it feels kind of like in retrospect that there's not much in there besides the most of the amiibo items. Which is like, I kind of wish there was more unique items in here besides the darkness. But besides that, I mean,
I
there
mean,
was also the Yiga strongholds, I guess. But even then, those were like, you can do those in like 3 to 5 minutes if that.
I feel like I
I
got
think
most of my battery components in depths,
you got
or
that
like
too.
upgrading the battery, and I think that was like the biggest thing.
Yeah,
the depths.
Kind
I
of
The
wish
feel
there
like
was
depths is a
more rewards
very
for
like
amiibo items.
the depths is
most
a very
recent
like
boss fights.
kind of like argumentative part of the game for a lot of fans of the game. A lot of people love them. I'm personally on the side that I really do like the depths a lot, but
Same.
like Dark, it's just there are aspects of the depths that definitely could have been improved. I mean, just the sheer size of them is like staggering in both ways. Where like, you know, it's not like there's as many interesting things in the depths. Like there is in the overworld. But I also just love that dungeon crawling aspect of the game that I feel like was kind of missing from, Breath of the Wild. And you look at it in this game, it's much more, you're very much uncovering this dark labyrinthian-esque design and just like slowly getting all the light roots and everything. Like I absolutely love the depths for that reason, but I can completely understand any criticisms towards the depths in terms of them feeling too large, feeling too empty, feeling uninteresting. Totally get it.
I think something else about that ties into the depths, but just the game in general, especially early game, middle game, and some late, the game is hard, like way harder than Breath of the Wild ever was. Like
Yeah, I agree with that.
there's a challenge to it in the depths
The
and just
final
in the
boss
overworld.
especially. Well,
Yeah,
actually,
the
there's two
final
bosses.
boss was Ganondorf was difficult, and whenever he like does the flurry rush as well, that's nuts.
Final
It
boss
wasn't that
Ganon.
hard.
Final boss Ganon, and when you have to go to Hyrule Castle after you get all the dungeons. Those two bosses are at like a big levels, like difficulty spike. Granted, I wouldn't say it's super difficult, but if you're someone who only plays like Nintendo games or only plays Zelda games, these were difficult boss fights.
Okay, I'll give
I
you
was-
that on that
And I was
scale. Sure.
surprised. I was like, wait a minute. Most kids are gonna fucking get their ass beat by this final boss.
Well, even
Yeah,
like the
that's true.
Phantom Ganon that
The
you kind
hands,
of
yeah.
like you just randomly find sometimes. Like, it's like, Jesus, what are we doing here? Like, chill, bro.
Better no Guardians. Like
Yeah,
the
like,
hands.
until
I
the until the end of the game, I had to run away from Gleeok because I could not beat them. And when I beat the king, that was a moment of pride.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah, Gleeoks are genuinely like one of my favorite boss fights in this game. They're probably my favorite boss fights outside of the final one. Just they are large scale epic encounters. I do think sometimes they get a little annoying with some of their breath attacks just constantly hitting me.
Yeah.
But overall, like I especially my favorite one to fight, I don't know about y'all, is the Ice Gleeok, because you use those kind of frost spears. You use rewind, which is another ability we forgot to talk about, but rewind on those icicles, and then it takes you all the way up. And I don't know if you guys did the same thing. I jumped between the icicles to finally like go for the final blow on them, and it just every moment like that just feels like a video moment, and that's kind of why I like Tears of the Kingdom. I like those screenshot moments, those video moments, those clips that you would throw on Twitter or like a Discord. That like moments like that is kind of why I play the video games in general.
I like
Yeah,
the
I mean,
King
it was
Leok
great.
fight.
King
Just
Gleeok
because,
was
like,
such a fun fight.
There is so much shit happening during a King Leok fight. It's so much to keep track of, especially during like their final phase when they fly ridiculously high into the air. You
Yeah, that's
can die
chaos.
on your way up there. It's such like it gets your blood pumping in the best way possible.
So wait,
I
did
mean-
you guys just not spam the Gleeoks with the bow and arrows with the
Oh, yeah,
eyeballs
of
on the
course I
top?
No,
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I did
and
that,
do that,
but it's
even
still
then.
difficult. Especially the king, whenever it starts, you can't like get a good shot in because there's tons of stuff falling down.
Right.
Do you do the King Leok and the dubs to get the Twilight Princess helmet? That fight's a pain in the ass, bro.
Yeah, because you're all like in a constricted environment and shit.
You know, you can't even see half like there's no light near you, by the way. You just have like an open area.
Yeah, no, that's definitely one thing that happens a lot of the time. Just kind of just confusion in the environment,
yeah.
but also utilizing those environments in your boss fights.
That reminds me, one other thing I did enjoy about the depths, I was like nice that they added the boss fights. Like you can refight all the bosses
Yeah.
inside the depth, which
Yeah,
was appreciated.
That helped me with the compendium.
Yeah, I think the reason why they did it was for the compendium, but outside of that, it was still cool to have those.
Running
Oh, yeah.
into like the Wind Temple boss fight, just randomly in the depths was a moment for sure.
I guess that could be a transition into our next topic, like dungeons and whatnot. But first, I do want to talk real quick, Benji. What did you think of the difficulty? You didn't talk too much about that specifically.
I mean, I'm pretty much with you guys where I think it was a shock because it's like harder than I think most Nintendo games, especially the final boss fight, and I definitely had to do it a couple times. But I thought it was pretty, like it was fair. I never felt like I was cheated or that was anything too hard or too difficult. And like honestly, I do want to shout out the rock golems, the mini boss rock golems,
Talisman.
because because I don't know how you guys beat him, but I would just go under him, ascend up, and then just
Yep.
hit the rocks on the
Yeah.
top. And I was like,
Yep.
this is such a funny way to do a boss fight.
There's so many ways to beat them. That's kind of like the magic of each of those encounters. It's like the battle talus. I love just going on there and then using my two-handed sword and going for the spin attack and just spamming it. It's just like all the different ways that you can get through each enemy encounter is fascinating.
I didn't have an issue
Also,
with
enemy
difficulty.
variety.
I'm sorry, Benj?
Enemy variety was there was a ton of enemies, whether it be like the world
Oh,
boss
yeah.
type things or the new enemies. There's just a lot.
Yeah, I think that part was definitely a massive improvement over Breath of the Wild. Breath of the
For
Wild,
sure.
that was kind of one of my major complaints is the enemy variety, and now like I genuinely didn't really have it as much. Obviously, there's not like this metric ton of enemies that they added, but I feel like it's enough to at least make the world feel more lived in.
Sure.
Going back to the
Um,
difficulty real quick,
Go ahead.
it was so funny to see like how much they changed Ganon. But I'm not sure like if you played the other games, I'm not sure if you guys know or not. A big meme in the community was how like you can literally distract Ganon with like a fishing rod. You can do dumb shit during the Ganon boss
Oh, yeah.
fights, and it's hilarious. And this game did this 180. If you have the Hylian shield, he can one-shot the Hylian shield. I'm not sure if you guys know that. He will break it in a single attack and all types of shit. It was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I mean,
I
that's
do
just
wish
how
they
Ganon is.
make it so that you can distract them with the fishing rod again. That would be fucking hilarious.
There's no
I-
fishing rod in this game, so it's not like you can do that.
I
They
will
need to
say
bring it back.
the final boss, like when you when you like flurry rush him and then go in and he flurry rushes you back, it's like, wait a second, that's illegal. You can't do that.
Yeah, and then the health bar, whenever that just keeps
Oh
going.
yeah, yeah. That was a big middle finger. It was so funny.
Oh yeah, the
What
health
did you
bar, how
guys
it
think?
straight up extended past the screen.
Yeah, it was
Go ahead.
very
That
good.
was fucking weird. My OCD was kicking off. Like, why can't you just make it into like center? But what do you guys think about the story? But that's where my biggest complaint is because they did not improve upon this with Breath of the Wild.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
I'm
the
the
story
complete
sucked.
opposite.
Yeah, I
I
disagree.
loved the story. I loved everything. The
Well, I should
storytelling, sure,
specify.
memories, but it actually has a purpose behind it, and I really like the story it told.
I have a
Okay,
major
so
complaint specific with the story, but Dark, you should go ahead first.
yeah, so my main issue, the story itself is fine, but they love doing this thing where they make like amazing, creative, and unique characters and they kill them off. They're all dead. Like everybody's dead, and it's all backstory. I'm like, can this stuff happen in the main? Like, why the fuck is I'm learning about all this cool shit that's happening when it could be happening like in the current time?
Yeah, that's kind of how like
Breath of
Dark
the Wild
Souls
was the
does
same
its
thing. All the
storytelling.
champions are cool ass characters, and they all dead. You can't interact with them. I was like, what the fuck?
I kind of disagree with that point. I think it's actually works just in terms of like kind of you see the world much more in a ruin-esque environments. You definitely explore. You get those like little moments of world building through just like kind of environmental storytelling, and I think Dark Souls does it a lot better than Tears of the Kingdom. But even then, like I do think it is much better than Breath of the Wild in that regard. But I definitely understand the criticism of like why isn't the cool stuff happening now?
The final dragon tier has to be one of the best Zelda sequences just in any of the games. That was just amazing.
Wait, that's the one with when she transforms
Zelda
into the
goes,
dragon, right?
yeah.
Now this is my
I don't know about that one.
story.
Oh
Yeah,
no,
I
I
don't know.
did. No, that was sick.
It was fine. I
I
think
don't know
people
if it's one of the
overhyped it.
best sequences.
Come on,
When
guys.
you
Well,
ride on the
no,
back
okay.
of her.
But you got to remember, I've only played Breath of the Wild and Link to the Past. So for me,
Yeah,
in
it's
like
fine for you.
my Zelda history, like, and to go back to what Benj was talking about, the memories in Breath of the Wild were boring. I'm sorry, I
Yeah, for
did
sure.
not care. In like the whole story itself, I was like, okay, it's been 100 years. Calamity Ganon. You know, go to the fucking castle and kill him.
It was set
Like,
dressing for the game.
I really just didn't, and that was one of the things that held me back on, because I am pretty like lukewarm on Breath of the Wild, and that was one of the things that held me back. I just didn't feel like I had a purpose or a reason to play through that game other than the very like quintessential you're the hero, go save the world kind of thing. Where in this game, you know, immediately they hit you with, oh yeah, there's a super like advanced ancient race that was wiped out before you guys even got there, and kind of was the start of Hyrule. And there's all this like background lore that they just dump on you. and then it makes you want to go do the tiers. Now, I will say it's a fair criticism. Depending on what order you do the tiers, it
There it
can
is. That's
be
fine.
frustrating.
Oh, yeah, that's another thing too. It's like, why did they should have made it so you can find all like the tier locations in any order, but have it play out in order.
Have it play out in. That's
Yeah.
like exact criticism. Why are they out of order? Because I cannot get connected with anything that's happening in the story. I got the cutscene for when Ganondorf like turned into like what is it, like Fierce Deity, right? Or no, not Fierce Deity.
He just
Demon
turned into the
King,
Demon Lord.
Demise.
Malice.
A Demon Lord. I guess.
But, bro, what are you on?
I don't. We'll just
Bro.
we'll call him. I'll call it his sicko mode. All right. When Ganondorf got his sicko mode, you know what I'm talking about. I got that cutscene as like one of my first tiers, and then like one of the other tiers was like the queen dying. It's like I don't. Why do I care? Like I already know that happened. It feels like I'm reading a book where the chapters are completely out of order, and I feel like a lot of people's like kind of viewpoint is like, oh, you know, it's like piecing together the story, but it's like there is a clear order in how the story should be presented, though. That's kind of my major criticism of that. Exactly, is that the cutscenes are meant to be played in an order, but I'm getting them out of order, and it just doesn't mesh well. It just makes me not really care about anything that's going on. And I think what's happening is cool, mainly in regards to Ganondorf. I think Ganondorf is definitely the best part of the game's story for me, at least. But it just I can't really care as much about anything that's happening if I am getting the story almost piecemeal, completely out of order, with kind of not really any way of understanding what's happening with each scene.
Jumping onto that point, I know a lot of people did this. I did this myself too. I went for the Master Sword pretty early on. And if you go for the Master Sword, you'll know that it pretty much reveals to you what happens to Zelda, which is like,
Oh yeah, same.
really and everybody I've talked to who did, they're like, what the fuck? There was no reason for that.
It's such a weird thing because it's like, oh, okay, Zelda turned into the dragon. Like I
I'm
don't
like,
know.
oh, I figured out where Zelda went.
Yeah, okay. So I'll push back here because I do think, not to say that I think your y'all's points are valid,
Yeah, sure.
because especially the Master Sword thing, I think that's super egregious, and that would definitely suck if you were just like boom immediately. Or I think it was Turbo Sean, one of our friends from another Discord, that said that he saw the Sonya death as his first one, and it just ruined. Like, I was like, oh, okay, well that sucks. There are definitely certain ones that I think should have been held back, and I think I got lucky because the way I did them, I pretty much got the important ones close to last, and
Same.
all of the world building ones first. So there was a payoff to how Sonya died, how Ganon turned into sicko mode, and how Zelda, what ended up happening with the Master Sword. And I thought it was really well done. And like, let's not pretend that, even though it's kind of a cheap way of selling you a mystery, let's not pretend that Zelda is the first game to ever like tell you a story out of order, and part of the fun is putting together the pieces and be like, well, okay, I know this, but how did we get there? And it kind of makes you want to explore that more. And I know that's not exactly a unanimously agreed on opinion to do something, but it's not something that is, we haven't seen it other places. And while I do think there should have been some maybe safeguards or barriers or some things that shouldn't have been found immediately, I really didn't have an issue with it. And if anything, it intrigued me more than telling it in a certain order.
Also, the story there is just very good.
Yeah.
I think it's a good story.
I think that's fair to say, Benji. I will say, like, I mean, you say like other games kind of do that piecemeal storytelling, and I think we've disagreed on this in the past in the way that kind of the Souls games handle the storytelling in that regard. I personally, my viewpoint is the difference is that in Souls, you're not really piecing together a story. You're more so kind of understanding what happened, but there isn't a clear beginning, middle, and end in the same way that you're trying to figure out. Like with Zelda, you're getting cutscenes that are very much beginning, middle, and end. Like there is a clear order in how they're meant to be played. But in Souls, you're almost getting information and trying to like piece together exactly what happened through the information that you gained. that's, in my opinion, how it's better handled. Because it's not like in Souls, like you pick up an item and you get the cutscene. Like that's kind of my issue in that regard with how Zelda handles it. But I feel like I'm almost in the minority in that regard. I think the story there is fine. Like I think it's good for a Zelda story, I'd say, but I don't really think that's saying much. But also, I don't really play Zelda games for the story, so it didn't affect me.
What did y'all think of the opening?
What?
A little off topic.
I thought it was great.
I thought it was
The
great
opening
as
was
well.
solid.
And
I
I
think
think
it's
the
one of the stronger.
payoff, the payoff when you get kind of the memories that go back to how, forget his name.
Raru?
Yeah, Raru and Ganon get down there and just like the original champions that kind of help him and
Yeah.
everything. I thought there was great payoff there. There was great payoff with the mural, figuring out what the end of it was. I really like, and then of course I think it was mentioned elsewhere, but I picked up on it pretty fast because I played the game early. I won't say how. But then getting far enough along and watching other people play the intro again and being like, wait, that's Zelda's dragon in the cutscene of the title shot. Like they put it there from the beginning. That is such a 5D chess move. I really liked how they handled it.
5D
Yeah, I mean,
chess
that's a
moves
cool
that's
thing.
gonna get spoiled to you if you fucking just go for the Masters, which is
Okay,
actually a lot
all right.
easier than Breath of the Wild.
Listen,
I
You're like,
will-
wait a
don't
minute. I was like, this is like
You're
so
right.
fucking obvious.
But yeah, this cutscene when you do the Spirit Temple with Raru and Ganon, I thought that was just so badass.
Okay.
Yeah.
Real quick though, I do have to say, you reminded me of one of my other major criticisms in terms of the story. Every temple you beat, you get literally the exact same cutscene.
That's fair.
It's the same cutscene.
That's
Yeah,
fair.
that's fair.
It's the exact same cutscene. There
Watch
is
this
no
when he gets
like,
smoked by Ganon. I'm like, oh, okay, I know what's gonna happen.
I know what happens. And also, it's just like I wish the actual like the original champions with Raru got more to them instead of this one's a Goron, this one's a Zora. It's like
Are
okay,
they-
like is there anything to their personality?
Are they the ones from the Divine Beasts?
No.
I mean,
Right?
maybe
No.
I don't
Other-
know.
No.
Oh wait, are you talking about from Breath of
No,
the
that
Wild?
would predate it.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, that's another thing I want to talk about. This game says fuck the title. If you're
Yeah, the
paying attention
timeline.
to
Breath of
this
the Wild makes
timeline
no
is
sense now.
broken. It makes no sense. It does not fit anywhere in the timeline.
See, that's
I
kind of the issue that comes when whenever you add time travel or any type of time anything into a story, and
Definitely.
it's just
No,
it makes Breath of the Wild feel weirdly out of place now because it's like
I blame
Zelda
it on
could
the
have prevented
devs.
Zelda
I
could
blame
have
it on the
prevented
devs.
the events of Breath of the Wild, wouldn't she? Like,
No,
I feel
because
like,
then it wouldn't have happened.
Because the devs purposely do not answer where the game takes place. And that's
I
what
think it's its
causes
own
the big issue.
pocket thing. I think
No,
Breath of the
it is
Wild
its
and
own
Tears of
pocket
the
dimension,
Kingdom
but it
are-
doesn't make sense any other way.
it's still you created this timeline. Stick with it, all right? It's not like I
Make it
asked for
make
the timeline,
sense.
but at least stick with it in some way instead of just going like, yeah, it's just its own dimension. Fuck it, we don't care.
Well,
Like,
Wolf, do
what?
you want an answer to how like you actually solve the timeline?
How do you do it?
You be like me and not be a dork and play all the games and be like, oh, this is
Okay,
cool, and not.
okay.
Alright.
No, here's my argument. I don't care about the timeline, but they created this timeline. They're like, hey, this is for the fans. And I'm like, I read through it. This is dumb because of the stupid timeline where Link dies in Ocarina of Time. It's like, wait, no, that doesn't make sense because then wouldn't all the other timelines be created if he died? Like, it's dumb in its own way. But just in general, you created this timeline. Stick with it at least. I don't care about it, but at least stick with it.
Yeah, no,
I
that's
said,
fair.
nah, bro. Bungy's like, yo, fuck the timeline, fuck the fan.
Well,
I mean,
okay,
none of
I
this
will
matters
say
because I don't care about the story.
from like a surface level, isn't like, and again, I do plan on playing the other ones, so maybe don't go heavy on spoilers, but
Yeah, no problem.
isn't there like 3 branching timelines like after
Yeah, there's 3.
Ocarina
Yeah,
or something?
Ocarina, for whatever reason, has like the timeline
It's-
split.
Yeah, jeez.
And it's
Okay,
the-
yeah.
Okay, this is a whole nother topic, but I just have to say this: Link dies timeline is one of the
It makes
dumbest
no sense.
fucking things. It's because it's like any other timeline he dies. Wouldn't that create a splintering timeline? Why is it this is the one that actually creates a splinter? It doesn't make sense.
I will say that they really like Twilight Princess is probably just like the timeline thing the best.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, so
but I
getting
guess
back to the story though, How
yeah.
did we feel about the finale and the end?
It was
The
amazing.
Where the
The
fuck did that
dragon.
orbital strike come from?
Yeah, that was
Great.
weird.
Like,
No, I
that was
was
the shit when it happened. I was like, where did this come from?
Well, all the divine or the
Where did the divine
scourges,
beast
like
go?
they exploded, right? So wouldn't it make sense that Dragon Ganon just has a bigger explosion?
I mean, I guess just in general, the whole finale. I think from a visual standpoint, it was cool. I really hated that dragon fight, man. That was so annoying.
Aw.
I
It was
loved it.
that
Yeah,
was
I
like
did too.
controlling the Zelda dragon was hell in it of its own way. Like I was like, this is just dumb. I
You
mean,
don't
it was
Control the
short.
Zelda dragon.
You kind
No,
of
you
do.
no, you
The
kind of do.
she'll automatically come to you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I was just like, she was just a vehicle of getting higher and jumping off again. I didn't realize you actually did something with her.
No, you can kind of move it around and stuff.
You can
like,
also
and
die during that
rotate.
boss fight. Like, she
Oh,
can
I'm
You
sure.
miss.
can.
Yeah, she can miss somehow.
Oh yeah, I bet.
Yeah,
I'm not a
I
big fan of
was
that.
so high on that ending. Everything, it was pretty much the whole like finale was an hour and a half, pretty much 2 hours maybe, and I was just on a high that entire time, and then falling to catch Zelda, that was great. I mean,
I think
I
it,
like
it dwarfs Breath of the Wild's ending. It's so much better.
Oh well, I mean that's easy.
yeah,
But
that's
still,
not
I
Breath of the
bad.
loved
Wild
the
ending
ending.
was terrible.
I thought that was like my like and this is very fitting because as we are recording this, Final Fantasy 16 is still kind of fresh and some of us are playing it, but just like the scale is just such a cool thing where it's like, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
we were fighting in this very small confined space, like like the center of Hyrule, like planet. And we're so far deep down, it's very congested, everything. And then boom, Gan turns into a dragon, and you ride him into basically space. And now we just have this massive gargantuan fight. Yeah, sure, it's really easy, and you're not actually doing much. It's not a skill fight, but I am always in favor of like very cinematic, epic, very climactic boss fights or set pieces and stuff. And I thought it was done really well. And plus, too, I mean, let's not forget post that fight when Zelda does turn back into, or like you have the whole scene with Rauru and Sonya where you turn her back from a dragon, which, you know, kind of saw that. Like, I think that was like, oh man,
Yeah,
they really
saw that
should just
coming.
committed to her like dying. I think that would have been interesting,
That would've
but
been so much
obviously
better.
that's not something that Zelda will ever do, like the game. But you know, the skydiving and then getting her back, like I don't know, I thought that was
I need
just
to
really
ask about
really
that
cool.
specifically. When y'all
Well,
were
one sec, can I?
skydiving, did you?
One sec.
No, no.
I was
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say you got the challenge in the final boss fight with the two phases before the dragon,
Right.
and then the dragon was just like, okay, here's the high climactic final that you all wanted. You got the
No,
challenge.
okay. You got the challenge, but then the dragon fight was like, this is unneeded. This is dumb.
No,
I
it
was
was
like,
no.
It was
I
cherry
don't
on
know.
top.
No, because it's just so annoying and weird working with the
Nah.
Zelda. I don't know. I will say the skydive part. Did y'all immediately catch Zelda? Because I'll be honest, I was trying to like let it go as far as possible. I'm like, man,
I
maybe
let
I
it
can
go a
kill
little
Zelda.
bit
I don't
for the
think you can
music.
immediately catch Zelda. I was
It's
holding that
time.
fucking button down, bro.
There's a point you can try to. I was trying to like see if like there was like a game over if you like didn't catch her because I also didn't like her, so I'm like, yeah, okay, go ahead. But I was like seeing how long it goes. Eventually, it gets to the point where like you're not really falling exactly. I don't know how to explain it, but like you're not really falling, I guess.
Yeah, they just stop. Like they're like, no, you have to catch her, so we're just gonna hold you here until you get closer, kind of
Yeah,
thing.
exactly.
I
Yeah, exactly.
I will admit I didn't realize right away. It was one of those moments where it's like, oh, it's not a cutscene anymore, and I had my hands off the control. I was like, oh, I gotta go catch her. Oh shit.
In general, skydiving in the game was so satisfying. Such a cool thing to have. And when
I
it's
Yeah, that's
will
always
fall,
mentioning Zelda is like another thing I feel like is a missed opportunity. If you played Skyward Sword, what the fuck? Why didn't they do anything with Navi?
Wait, no,
No, not
Navi?
Navi.
Fee?
Fee.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
Fee. Yeah, I was about to
I don't
say.
know why Navi head ass came to mind. Why didn't they do anything with Fee? Fee would have been awesome if they showed like she came out or something.
Because they
Is she
don't
dead?
care about the
What's going-
timeline. It doesn't
She's
matter
in
to
the
them
game. They showed her
anymore.
twice.
Nah, it doesn't matter to them.
Maybe
They,
She
if it
exists.
doesn't matter, she wouldn't have
well,
talked.
no. I'm saying I'm with you. It would be cool if Fee was in the game, but yeah, no, they just don't care. I guess just in general, like the overall ending, like there was like a cutscene afterwards. Did you guys think? I was just at that point. I'm like, okay, I beat the game. I'm just
I don't
gonna
understand what the point of that
let this
cutscene
go.
was. 'Cause
It
I know
was.
for a
I
fact
think
they're
it
not
was
doing a third game.
They're not. I think it because they're not doing a third game. I think it pretty much said what everyone's going to be doing and kind of brought everyone together and
Oh,
gave
redundant.
everyone a nice soft ending that they're all going to be working to make Hyrule better together and everyone's united and at the end forever for that like Zelda 2 games. They capped everything off well.
I will say I hate it. I hate it when all games do this. When it takes you back before the final boss when the game ends. I'm like, come on, I already did this. I don't know. That's always like a pet peeve of
To be
mine.
fair, Zelda always done that. I don't think there's a Zelda
I
game.
know. I know. It's just annoying for me personally. I guess because it's like this one's more open world. It's just like this was the same criticism of Breath of the Wild. I don't like being transported right before the final boss where it's like, ah, yeah, all that stuff you just did, it didn't matter. Go do other stuff. I guess though. So sorry, Ben. Go ahead, Bench.
I was going to ask what your favorite dungeon was.
Yeah, no, that's what I was going to transition into. Just the overall, the temples. Obviously, one of the biggest criticisms I feel a lot of people had with Breath of the Wild was the dungeons. I'm also very outspoken in that. I did not like the Divine Beasts at all in that game. I guess but like now we have the temples in this game. I'll immediately ask the panel like what your favorite temple in this game was.
I think it's hands down the Wind one.
Yeah,
I agree.
I don't know.
However, I think in general it was all better than Breath of the Wild. And I think this temple format was good. I don't think you're ever going to get classic Zelda dungeons, where this is definitely the next best thing.
No, you'll get
I
them
don't know.
back. Yeah, they're gonna go back.
Bro
to
wants the
classic
tedious
dungeons.
water dungeons to return.
No, I wait. Hang on. Twilight Princess had a good water dungeon though.
I mean, I guess.
You guys think that the Wind Dungeon was everyone's, because it was my favorite too, but do you think that it was a lot of people's favorites because they pretty much like guide you over there to be your...
They like go to the window first.
It's like the first one, yeah.
It's like the first one, and it does have a really good intro, like, you know, with all the platforming section,
You can
just like
tell
a
the
huge lead up.
They
Like,
were hyping me off. The devs
Right.
knew that was probably like the best one in terms of quality. They're like, yo, go check this one out.
Yeah, because I'll admit, if I had to do the water dungeon one first, I'd be like, what the hell is this? Like,
that one was terrible.
Yo, the boss fight for that dungeon was so fucking goofy. I was like,
Yeah,
it's so weird because you get these badass boss fights like Colgera or like whatever the fire one was. I forgot his name.
The
But
mech?
then you get this
little
goofy ass dude.
What the fuck is this?
I was like, there's no way this is the water dungeon. But I did water dungeon last. I'm glad I did it last because that one was bad.
I did it second. I did wind, water, fire, and then lightning.
Yeah, no, I was. A lot of people did lightning last. I did it second because I love Gerudos. I'm a Gerudo fanboy.
I did
it
lightning third. Yeah.
What are you guys' like overall rankings of the 5 dungeons?
Probably.
I'll go first. So I have Wind, Spirit, or like the mech one, because I do love that boss fight so much, where they just put up wrestling rings, and it's like, oh yeah, here's a mech, by the way. That I thought that was really good. I really liked the fire one. I know it ran like poop in there, and it just like the fight itself was kind of underwhelming, but I guess it unlocked like Donkey Kong Country nostalgia with the minecarts, where I'm like, this is fun. I'm having fun.
Yeah,
the environment was just cool in the depths, and then you're like in the lava, stumbling across it was fun.
And then lightning, I thought was pretty solid. Then water,
I'll go.
What about? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Wind, Spirit, Fire, Hyrule Castle, Lightning, and Water.
Bro sneaked in Hyrule Castle.
I don't know. Hyrule I always count.
As a count.
I count it as a dungeon.
It's a boss
Well,
combat.
I'm even talking about just the entirety of it, because even in Breath of the Wild, it's a dungeon, and in Tears of the Kingdom, exploring it as well.
I will say it is.
It has a
I
dungeon
much
map.
preferred Hyrule Castle and Breath of the Wild. This one was
Oh,
kind of
same. That was that's one of my favorite Zelda dungeons, Hyrule Castle from Breath of the Wild. But I still think this one was very good. And the boss fight and then everyone showing up was good in this game.
Probably my rankings go as like Wind as the best, obviously, but then like Lightning. I realize I am a Gerudo stan. I like anything Gerudo in any of the Zelda games. Like Gerudo Valley is my favorite area, and Ocarina of Time. I love everything relating to Ganondorf is just my favorite Zelda character. Like anything Gerudo, I love. Just in general, I'm a big fan of desert environments in any game, honestly. But it's Wind, Electricity, Spirit, Fire, and then Water easily at the bottom. I don't know where I would rank Hyrule Castle. Probably like above Water, I guess. There's not much to
I
say
wouldn't
about that.
even put it above water. It's not a fucking
Something
dungeon,
about
bro.
something
It's
about
like
Gerudo.
it's an area.
Something about the Gerudo town. I think a cool evolution of the world is you don't have to cross dress to be in there anymore because people know you're the hero of Hyrule and they recognize who you are.
There's not even
Oh yeah.
that. It's just that like, why you gotta uphold? Like they couldn't even get people in there, bro. They have other things to worry about.
Yeah, wait, before we move on to that, what was your dungeon ranking, Dirk?
So from top to bottom would probably be Wind, Fire, Lightning, Water, Spirit,
Okay,
Hyrule
that's
Castle.
fair. What Spirit at the wait, Spirit near the bottom? How come?
Because I thought that the whole shit was boring. It's just the depths. The only
That's
thing
fair.
that was cool is the boss fight. I was like, okay.
The boss fight was definitely
I
very
like their
cool in
puzzles.
general.
I don't like the depths
Yeah.
puzzles. I don't like the depths that much.
Oh, we
we
can tell.
got #1 depths haters.
What do y'all think of the
But
sky?
yeah, I mean that's the big topic in general that I feel like we almost like kind of avoided waiting a bit. The sky, just in general, like overall thoughts, like how did we feel about him?
I liked the
cool.
sky. I think they oversold it in trailers for sure. However,
100%.
what's there and the puzzles and the exploration is very high quality. Like you have like the big forge in the sky, and I racked my brain for 30 minutes to an hour on how to get up there, and I worked for another hour getting up there. And once you got up there, it was the most like monumental achievement and the biggest rush. And I can say that with several other sky islands, just exploring the sky. And sure, it's not a whole lot, but the puzzles there are great, and I liked it a lot.
Which island took you an hour to get up to?
Because I went, there's a waterfall down, but I didn't have the Zora stuff then, so I was kind of working it up out of order kind of thing. It was a big forge castle looking thing in the sky. It's very high up.
Yeah. I just used the sky tower to take me up there. It was pretty quick.
I did not.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was just an interesting one. It's like, oh yeah, I guess I felt that. Benji, what did you think of Sky?
Yeah, I pretty much what Benj said, where it's I think they did oversell it to an extent because really outside of part of the light or the spirit temple, you really and obviously the tutorial or intro area, you don't really have a reason to go up there unless you want to. But for me, it was almost a I think that was like really the most zen-like experience I had with the game, where I'd like put on a podcast or just kind of just zone out and just really calm. There's no rain up there. You're not climbing and slipping up there. There's not really if you're about to drop into a boss fight island. The temples up there are still pretty creative, or not temples. Shrines are pretty creative in how they want you to unlock them and solve them. There's still some great puzzles, but it just felt just so peaceful up there and separated, where I'd go up there when I had a really when I was getting frustrated or just like overwhelmed with the depths or something on the mainland, where I was like, I'll just go to the sky and kind of chill out for a while.
I mean, that's just kind of one of the highest compliments I can give this game is just the variety of the locations of the main 3 locations. Kind of makes it to where like anytime you're bored of one like environment, you can immediately just go into the next. Like if I'm kind of getting tired of the overworld, I just jump into the depths. I'm getting tired of the depths, I just go right into the sky and like mess around there. Like there's so much just there alone that I feel like just in general I feel like I was always able to get some type of like enjoyment out of just checking out anything around the world. I never really got tired of playing the game. I never went like, things got drab, things got uninteresting, because I always had a variety of environments to explore.
And
And
the
Benji, you actually
and the
go ahead, Benji.
seamless transition between the three is actually mind blowing how they pulled that off.
That's
Oh
very
yeah,
true as well.
Like
it's
you have like
insane.
the labyrinths, and you're going through all three, and you have to like dive down. It's nuts.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. Just in general, like the seamless transitions in general are pretty hard to do. We saw with Starfield kind of we're not really getting those seamless transitions. Of course, I mean like that's a completely different game. They're doing different things. But like just seeing how Zelda was able to do that just alone is a really cool thing. And
On the
Benji,
Switch.
Well, I
yeah,
don't
the
know if it was
Switch.
seamless. I feel like I don't know if you guys are familiar with Gears of War and how they do things. They hide. So Gears of War, we have like these sections where you have to chainsaw through like I don't know a piece of wood or something. And while that happens, it's loading in the rest of like the
No,
world.
that's every game.
Yeah, so I feel
Every game
like
does that.
when you're jumping from the sky to the depths, if you notice, it's like that big depth, like that section where it's just like it's
Oh
just
yeah.
earth.
Oh yeah,
That's probably the loading screen right there.
I
And that's
mean,
how they squeezed it
yeah,
in.
that's what we mean by seamless, is that it feels seamless when we go through it. Obviously, it's like it's loading in the new environment.
You can dive from the
Every
top
game
to the
does that.
bottom. That's what
Yeah,
we're just
exactly.
trying to say.
right. It's uninterrupted.
Yeah.
Like there's no loading screen or anything.
Yeah, it's
Or
like
delay.
there's no because even when you're skydiving through that, you can still move around. You can still like go faster if you want, because it probably loads even better if you're not like doing the like the pencil dive. But it's not like a game where you're crawling through the crevice where it's obviously a loading screen that you have no control of, kind of thing. They did do it, kind of like No Man's Sky, when you're going from the planet to the atmosphere, where it's cloudy, I can't see anything. Everything's loaded now, I can see everything. So
Yeah, no, I mean just in general, the seamless transitions are definitely like one of the highlights for me. Another highlight for me, Benji kind of like just mentioned this earlier, the shrines. I think just in general, like shrines in Breath of the Wild were always like cool to me, but like they just felt like almost like crappy dungeon replacements in my opinion in Breath of the Wild. I look at it in this game and they are 10 times more interesting. I feel like each shrine had a cool puzzle, cool gimmick. And again, like we talked a lot about how the unintended puzzle solutions that you can get through all the abilities, like Fuse, Ultra Hand, Rewind, all that. And I feel like this game perfectly demonstrated that with its shrines. I love going into a shrine and kind of figuring out these puzzles in ways that I really shouldn't have. I, it's just like that type of like puzzle solving, those sandbox elements really flourished in the shrines, and that's the type of stuff I really love in a game.
Yeah, the shrines were great. One that really stood out to me is one where you have to like make like a golf club kind of baseball thing,
yes,
and you have to like
Oh yeah.
that. So many like none of the Breath of the Wild ones really stuck for me, except like the ones that were annoying. But all of these, there's so many that stuck with me that it was so good, and there was more of them than Breath of the Wild.
Oh yeah,
yes.
that's what I'm
Some
saying. Just
some of
like,
my favorites were that one. There was one where literally I think you used there. It was like a big cube on a pivot, like swing, and you had to swing it like a golf club to knock the ball into the hole, like
Oh, I
kind
know
of
the one you're
through
talking
the
about.
air. Yeah, that one was really cool. I think my favorite one though was I want to say it was near Terrytown, where it was one of the I forget what's the one where they take away all your stuff. The challenge.
Yeah,
yeah,
chest of
So,
not
right.
chest of metal.
Yes. So they take away all your stuff and they're like, cool, kill this giant room full of robots. And they basically are like, hey, here's a vehicle. Wouldn't it be crazy if you put these spikes on top of it and just mow everyone down? It's like, yeah, okay. That's
They
the
give you a fucking
funniest.
Roomba, bro.
Yeah, well, or like, it's like you're playing GTA and you're getting points for running over, pedestrians. That's like, I'm playing a Zelda game right now. Why am I doing this? And then also the Jenga Shrine, I think everyone
Oh, yeah.
remembers. And then another one I really want to point out was I want to say it was in the northeast where the labyrinth is over there. the way I compare it to is basically the Warthog run in Halo 3, where it's this giant
Yes.
road that
I
you
know which
jump
one you're
over
talking
a
about.
couple of times. Yeah, that's like this huge bank turn, and then at the end you gotta like rocket boost it or you won't make it. I was like, this is so much fun. Like, I think Benji said it, where the only ones you remember from Breath of the Wild are the annoying ones. I never got frustrated enough to have to look up a guide for any shrine in Tears of the Kingdom because I always found a way to solve them, and that is something that I just infuriated me with Breath of the Wild, where it's like I'm banging my head against the wall. It's like, oh, I had to do this one specific thing, and if I don't do it this way, I can't advance. That's stupid. Where going back to just the freedom of the game, I never had an issue with any of them. And if I had to cheese it, so what? Like I don't care. I still did it.
It's your game.
Okay, while I agree, there was one fucking shrine. I know people had issue. It was the one where there was like it was like you had to balance yourself on these rails.
Yep. Okay.
Yes, I know which one.
About to
This
mention it. That one
fucking one.
sucked.
Who
It
made
does
this?
not make sense at all.
I figured it out. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Yeah, right.
Okay,
I don't
Benji,
believe. I don't believe you.
stupid. I
So
figured
basically,
it out through YouTube.
You know what I did? I fucking went. I walked the rails, bro.
Oh my god.
Oh, I respect that.
I
That's
went
you're a
there
real one for that.
I was like, the fuck this. I don't know how you're supposed to do that one. I felt dumb.
You're supposed to like kind of create an
You have to
M
make
shape.
You have to make a. It didn't work. I did that.
No, it's definitely a thing where you had to. It was a little bit specific, but it was still. If you put the dividers on the bottom in a specific way, it'll be just long enough to fit on the outside and then still stay intact on the inside. And granted, it took me a couple of tries. I had to rack my brain around that one, but I really did like the skip that I saw going around on Twitter where the dude just cart surfed.
He launches himself.
He like sword surf or shield surfs with the cart on. I was like, okay, that's pretty smart.
Yeah. I mean, just one of my favorite skips for most dungeons just comes from Rewind, where you just kind of like put the item above and then use Rewind to kind of make a makeshift elevator. Just stuff like that is so cool. It just utilizing the tools in such creative ways, in ways that the game may not intend, but also the developers intend in and of itself, where they're like, yeah, you know what? Just figure it out your way. If you figure it out, you figure it out. Here's your shrine orb.
Yeah, and I think it's good to point out too, when we say breaking the game, it's just doing it in a way that maybe wasn't the main intention. The game actually never breaks. Like it does account for everything you're trying to do, which is arguably more impressive. But yeah, Benj, I will say there was a shrine early on where it's like there was this upwards ramp with a bunch of pegs, and I think you had to like make the wheel or something rotate on the pegs to like move it all the way up.
Oh, that one drove me crazy.
So what I did for that one, I did exactly what you're talking about, where I used the Ultra Hand, I dragged it up halfway, kept it there for like 30 seconds, stopped, did rewind, climbed the ladder. It was still up there, and then I grabbed it and moved it to the top. I was like, okay, well, that's one way of doing this. Yeah.
As Todd says, it just works. I mean, I guess like bouncing off of shrines, and how you were talking about with Ultra Hand, what do you guys think was like kind of the craziest Ultra Hand build you made? Like, what is one that you're generally proud of that you used a lot throughout the game?
I didn't really have anything too crazy, although I did make like a bunch of like a crazy fucking ramp. Like ramps in this game are crazy broken. Okay, you can do so much shit.
Oh yeah,
I took a bunch of wood and made long ass ramps, and I whipped it out whenever I needed it. Like I remember there was a couple like fucking hours where like you couldn't reach it. I'm like, oh yeah, that was shit ton of fucking wood.
I'll say, go right ahead, Benji.
I think the craziest thing I made, I never did anything super crazy, but I'd make my planes not just like planes, make them look pretty cool. So I'd get pretty creative with those.
Yeah, one of my favorite inventions I made pretty much in the first area of the game. I call it the log. And what you do is you cut down as many trees as possible to the Ultra Hand limit, and you tape every single one of those logs together to create this impenetrable bridge that you could use anywhere. I call it the log. It's my favorite thing. and I lost it in the first island, and I was devastated because I had no idea what to do without it. But again, just the fact that the game let me do that and the fact that it worked just goes to show just the magic of the game and how it works. Benji, you have a cool build like that?
I didn't do really anything crazy. Like I'm not always creative in that regard. So a lot of the cool things I made, like the hover bike, like I got from Twitter, which I will say is one of the great things about this game too, is that there's something about the zeitgeist of everyone online playing the same thing at the same time that all of our brains work differently, and just seeing what other people create, and you can actually emulate it this time, whether it's really smart or really stupid. I really like that. But so I will say, I think my favorite invention was I think it's in the kind of the wind area, the northwest. There's that golden horse. Was it Zelda's horse or
Zelda's
Yeah,
horse.
it's not this.
yeah? I had a really hard time trying to catch that one. So what I did was I made a really long stick with a bunch of wood beams, and then I made a giant wall out of. I think there were a couple of those like kind of signpost areas where they give you a lot of materials, and I literally just made a giant net and just dropped it on the area with the horse so it couldn't run away. And then I was like, "You're stuck here now. I don't care if I don't have enough stamina. I am catching you." So that
That's
was
good.
that was really funny.
I guess that's kind of we're I want to start like almost wrapping up in a way, but like I kind of want to transition it to this topic of kind of that moment for this game where you saw it becoming like obviously we're extremely high on it. Like, what was that moment that you realized this game was something special, one of your favorites of all time? That one seek like just it doesn't even have to be story, gameplay, just like something random that happened in the world.
I know for
Nah.
me, it was almost immediately too, because again, I was very lukewarm on Breath of the Wild, and the way I came about playing this game was I was actually at the time it came out like right after Redfall, and I was like, I'll
Oh
play
no,
Redfall, and then if I have time between whatever the next game was, I forget what other game was releasing around that time. Maybe I'll maybe pick up Tears of the Kingdom, but like I wasn't big on Breath of the Wild, and I don't want to spend the money. And then once Redfall flopped, I'm like, okay, well now I all of a sudden have time to play Tears of the Kingdom. And for me, the moment where I was like, no, this game is different is in the tutorial area when they give you the glider, and that's how because you don't have the paraglider at that point, and that's how you get back from the last temple to, well, at least that's the way they want you to go back from the last shrine to the main kind of starting area, that big building that kind of looked like a V. Getting on that glider and having it work, but then controlling it, like how I step on it, and being able to kind of like, you know, meticulously like steer my way over there. I was like, oh no, this game is different. Like this is something that I think is unlocking a part of my brain that Breath of the Wild didn't.
yeah, no, I
I
mean
think
those type of moments.
I
You
think my
guys go out
moment
there.
was pretty immediate. It was just getting off the Great Sky Island and just diving down. And while you're diving down, the clouds are opened up finally, and you're just seeing everything. And you're in for something special.
What about you, Dirk?
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing the bench did. I very much had that Fallout leave the vault feeling. Like if you played the Fallout
Oh
games, you know
man,
exactly what I'm talking about. It's
yep.
a very grand moment, and you're like, "Holy shit!" And then you just
Just
like
that
freak whatever
realization.
the fuck you're like.
Yeah, I love it when a game does those like kind of big pans to show like, hey, this is the world you're gonna explore. Have fun. But I guess for me, it was genuinely just like a random moment for me where I saw a cliff I needed to get up, and there was an air balloon and some planks and one of those flamethrowers, and it was kind of that like thing that clicked. It's like, wait, I can make an air balloon fly if I use fire, and so I just put it inside,
Wolf learns
put
about
it on
fire.
like
He learns
yeah,
about
yeah,
fire.
something like that. Listen, I'm not the smartest guy, but I use the fire, and the air balloon starts floating, and I get to the top of the cliff, and I remember going like, yeah, and just that like randomly out loud. Sometimes you just say something out loud when you're playing a game alone, where I was just like, this is one of the greatest games of all time. Just that feeling of like, this is something special, and I'm gonna be doing this 1,000 times throughout the game, and I'm never gonna get tired of it. And guess what? I never got tired of it.
Real quick, going back to jumping off the skyline, Sky Island into Hyrule for the first time at the beginning. And we kind of danced around it and talked about it tangentially, but I don't think any of us obviously had really any idea that the depths existed. They did a very good job of hiding that before, for the most part, before the game started. And so when I went down there, and I very much closely related this to Elden Ring, where I'm like, this map is huge, and then when you go underground for the first time, it's like, I'm sorry, what is down here? Is this a whole nother map? Like, Tears of the Kingdom was the last game I thought that could handle a completely underground map on top of Hyrule, on top of the Sky Islands, on the Switch of all devices. And so when I went down there and, the big like brass, and then it kind of like opens up and you can kind of see the silhouette of the world, it's like, holy shit, what is going on in this game?
I mean, keep in mind, Breath of the Wild was a Wii U title.
True.
Breath of the Wild 2
Yeah,
was made
this is the
specifically
game.
for the Switch. So if they can do this on this
Yeah,
type of
this is-
hardware, I can only imagine what they're gonna do with the Switch 2 now that we know like the specs of it to a degree. Also, another thing that was really interesting, because I mentioned that I knew about it beforehand. I was one of the people who like looked into the leaks. Like this game leaked pretty fucking early. So seeing the Redditors' reaction to like the depths was the craziest shit I've ever. They were losing their minds over it. They were like, "There's no way this entire third of the game that they just didn't show whatsoever."
And that's the thing.
Tangentially,
It's just they didn't show.
like, I do
So
want to
cool.
talk about leaks real quick because we didn't talk about this at the beginning, but this is easily one of the funniest like parts about when this game came out. Bench like just didn't mention the fact that the people who got it early through potentially illegal methods and was playing it, he was so excited that he was asking so many questions to the point where it's like, Bench, you're gonna ruin this game for yourself if you find out everything before the game. And to his credit, he still loves this game. And I
didn't
thought
find
that
out
was
everything though.
So Bench went through
Sure.
arcs when this happened. There was an
But
arc where
yeah.
he was saying that the game was gonna suck because there's no way it could live up to its expectation.
he was going
Bro.
through it.
Bro was counting down sleeps.
He was counting
Yep.
sleeps to the name drops. I was like, what is happening?
I can't judge him because I'm doing that right now with Starfield. So
Oh, 100%. But just like the fact
Doing that
that
right now,
like
Final
he
Fantasy
knew
15.
the fact that he knew people were playing it and was still asking information about it instead of going blackout, and he still had like that much enjoyment. Like, I gotta respect it.
The
That is
only two things that were spoiled for me were the depths, and there was one other, the fact that there were temples. So I
Mm.
mean,
Already knew
I
that there was
remained
multiple
largely
temples.
unspoiled.
It's impossible to not get the temple spoiled when you listen to Jeff
Yeah.
Grubb's podcast. Man is trying so hard not to spoil it. He's like, "Oh, the
Well,
dungeons."
Nintendo spoiled it themselves before the game
Yeah,
came
they
out.
did.
They
That was
literally,
funny.
I was like,
That
"What
was
are you doing?"
Yeah, no, I guess almost a transition. Like I kind of mentioned Starfield earlier. Like, how sure are you guys? Like, I'm assuming it's all of ours personal game of the years right now. Do you guys think it'll stay that way?
If Starfield has
think-
everything out the park, I can see it taking it.
I
it's gonna
think
be-
it'll
it's
be
rough.
my game of the year. It's gonna be. I love Bethesda RPGs. It's gonna determine what Starfield scratches. It's gonna, because I don't know. Tears of the Kingdom was just so good, and I think Starfield can be as good, but it's just gonna personal feelings once I play through the game. It's gonna, yeah. I don't know. It's impossible to say, but Tears of the Kingdom, unless Starfield delivers, maybe even still Tears of the Kingdom.
I mean, Benji, Dirk, we're the big Bethesda fanboys. It's
I
clear.
mean,
like,
I'm still a
it comes
Bethesda
down-
fanboy.
Oh yeah, no, Bench. I'm not like trying to discount you at all, but like I feel like it's almost more likely with when it comes to us three, because we know like you're the massive like Zelda fan, and it comes down to like Benji, Dark. Like we're much more Bethesda fans. I don't know about you guys. Like, are you more Bethesda fans than Zelda fans?
Yeah, I say so. I mean, I love both of them equally, but I spent more time said a fucking Bethesda game than I have said a Zelda game, and without a
Yeah.
question. Even like
And
Breath
it
of the
feels
Wild.
like it comes down to that. It comes down to that battle between the two. Obviously, this is like this could age badly. I have full faith Starfield's gonna deliver, but like obviously,
Like,
like
don't get me
I'm
wrong.
trying not to overhype myself.
Breath of the Wild 2 is an amazing game. The amount of time I fucking played Skyrim alone, like,
Yeah,
there's
Skyrim,
something
no,
about Bethesda games.
it's something about
They
them.
just
It
work.
really comes.
They
I mean,
just work.
Benji, you haven't talked of it. Your thoughts?
No, I was letting you guys go. I mean, I will say, Bench, you could be a Bethesda fanboy. You weren't on the Starfield meal prep, so you know.
Exactly.
Out of
We
hand.
gotta.
Oh,
We
Fake
gotta.
I would have
fan.
been there. I watched
Fake
it this week.
fan.
Though.
fake
I watched
fan.
it.
I'm just messing with you, but you know, it's funny. I'm actually more of an Obsidian fan than I am a Bethesda fan, but it's still obviously Western RPG. So
Raider,
uh,
bro.
that's
For real.
But okay. Regardless, I still not to get too negative, but I do think where Zelda, you know, can lose me in a game of the year argument is, listen, I love the art style of the cell shading and how it looked, but like, let's be honest,
Yep.
there is something missing there for me that a game like Starfield with that kind of graphical fidelity,
Yeah.
and that's not even like Zelda's fault because they're, you know, they did a very smart thing in working within the limitations of the Switch, and that's kind of their style. But I think the graphical fidelity of Starfield and just, you know, space and the planets and the variety that could, you know, dwarf Tears of the Kingdom in that regard, I think that is something that could personally swayed me over to Starfield. And then I think to performance, like, again, we don't know how Starfield's going to run. We assume it's a locked 30. Will it stay a locked 30? Who knows?
Of course.
But I think it is fair to point out that in Tears of the Kingdom, there are certain times where, you know, whether it is Ultra Hand, because that was the one big downside of Ultra Hand. Anytime you press the L button, your frame rate tanks by, you know, 5 to 10 frames, depending on what you're grabbing. And there are certain areas where it still chugs. There are certain like things you can do or you know, instances where it can chug. And I think performance wise, if Starfield can nail that, I think you know, it could kind of take over. And then I think the last thing is, while I do really like Starfield story, or Starfield, while I really do like Tears of the Kingdom story, I didn't get a lot out of the side quests, and you know, I think, and just kind of the side content, it was still really good, but I don't have like too much of an attachment or feelings to those
You
as
didn't
much
have
as I
the
do the main
characters.
story.
You're
Right.
not going to have the Bethesda, like the clans and the things you get involved in. But it's just not going to have that, and that's what Bethesda's
You don't
great
have
at.
that
So,
character building,
yeah.
that world building that like Bethesda games, you know, revel in. Like that's what I'm going into Starfield with, like expectations of. I just want like that. If they can give me that really good story, not just for the main quest, but for the side quests, for the factions, I could see it taking over Zelda for me just with that alone, because I love that Bethesda style of making games.
And, like looking at the Starfield trailer and seeing the planets in the background, I don't know if I'm ever going to get over seeing that in a Starfield planet.
Right.
Same.
And you know, and that's all to say that I still love Tears of the Kingdom. It's still easily my number one game this year.
Any other year, no contest.
Right. And it's just, it is interesting to see where my limitations are, but at the end of the day, you know, if Starfield can't hold my attention like Tears of the Kingdom can, like I still think for me, my greatest determination of if I really like a game or not is, can I just play this for 8 hours and ignore my responsibilities as an adult? Because Tears of the Kingdom passes that test with flying colors. And
Easily.
if Starfield, like, granted, you know, I still think I'm going to find stuff to do. But if it is like okay, I'm kind of done for the night. Like, let's go do something else. This isn't holding my attention. Like, it, you know, it very well could be. And so if it can't do that like Tears of the Kingdom did, then I think Tears of the Kingdom would still be my number one.
I think if any game
do
can
wanna
do
add-
that, like, it's a Bethesda game. Because, like,
Sure,
I mean,
right.
I don't know about y'all. First game I ever did an all-nighter to, Skyrim. Like, those games just hold your attention. Go ahead, Doug.
I do want to add, like I mentioned how my favorite moment of Breath of the Wild was that opening, like where you pan out, you see the world. The ones who created that were Bethesda, so it's kind of like
True.
Oh yeah.
I could see Starfield taking it.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I could see either or taking it. It really just depends on personal interest. That's kind of like I feel like it's going to be very similar to 2018, where it was like Red Dead Redemption 2 versus God of War, or like 2022, where it was Elden Ring versus God of War Ragnarok. Like, what do you personally look for in a video game? Like, what's the experience you wish desire? I'm fine with either or being game of the year. Obviously there's going to be our personal favorites, but I think both games are very deserving. Obviously Starfield's not out, but like just saying in hindsight.
Yeah.
Game of the year was the friends we made along the way, bro.
True. I guess is that everything we want to talk about? Like I just go around the panel. Our final thoughts on the game. Bench.
I mean, I think this is going to be an experience that sticks with me for a very long time. Breath of the Wild came at an early age for me, and this came at a changing part of life, and that just like forever going to cement that experience for me. And it was just such a good game, and I'm never going to forget it. And it's currently, I think, my favorite of all time.
Oh man, big words. Benji, what about you?
Yeah, it again, I don't have the Zelda history that you all do, and really Breath of the Wild was my first Zelda game. It was just my blind spot growing up. And I really didn't get the hype. I didn't like I just it all completely passed by me, and I didn't have the background, and I was like, I don't think these games are for me. And I almost felt like a bit of FOMO because everyone's gushing about this game, and it's like I don't understand it. Like I just don't get it at all. And it was really rewarding to have those moments in this game where there was so many times there was just a smile on my face where I was just sheer fun playing video games and being enthralled in an interesting story and just going around this world and wanting to do everything. I really did enjoy my time with this game. And yeah, for me personally, it ended up right now it's sitting at number 5 top games of all time, and that's pretty good for someone who doesn't have a background on this franchise. So yeah, there's nothing more I could praise about this game because all the ones in front of it are pretty much nostalgia plays. So that's about as
Oh
high
yeah.
as it could probably go.
Yeah, no, nostalgia definitely plays a high role into all of our favorite games, to be honest. Dark, how about you?
Yeah, the Zelda team, 99% of the time, they always deliver. But them working with Monolith Soft now, Monolith, they're the ones that are like, I feel like they were the backbone of Breath of the Wild and now Tears of the Kingdom, with just how massive the environments were, like how the world works in general. They're proving themselves to be like one of the studios to look out for. And it says a lot when this is the type of game that they have in their like pedigree. But yeah, the game was.
Final thoughts on the game. I was about to ask.
I mean, yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Because of them, because of everything, I do think it is a must-play title. Even if you're not a fan of Zelda, just give it a shot. Games are gonna be inspired by this. It's gonna happen. It's happened before. We probably can get like another Elden Ring-esque experience because of this game.
Yeah, I mean, just in general, like this is I guess to piggyback off of you, it's like, yeah, this is a game to look out for. This is a game to really that's gonna change the trajectory of a lot of games going forward. Obviously, not everything. Like we're gonna still get our Ubisoft open worlds that a lot of people just aren't really the biggest fans of. I'm one of those people, but like you get Elden Ring experiences because of stuff like this. That's kind of why I feel like video games are so special. Just seeing how much each game can build off of another, even if they're not even the same genre, the same type of game. Like they still build off of each other in so many ways. That's the type of stuff I love to see. And yeah, I guess final thoughts. This is definitely one of my favorite games of all time. How high it's on my list, I'm not sure because I'd say it's probably better. It's around the same tier as Link Between Worlds for me, which is currently my favorite Zelda game. I think it probably surpasses it. I just kind of try to let go of that nostalgia to make sure that I can actually look at it more objectively in that regard. But even then, like this is definitely one of those games that, as Dark said, is a must play. Pick it up when you can, however you can. Play it at a friend's house. Just try it. You will not regret it. This is definitely a must-play video game, not just for the Switch, just in all of gaming. You need to play this game. But yeah, I think that's just about to do it. I hope you guys all had a great time listening to us kind of ramble, talk all things Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom. We want to make sure to try to make Food Coma more of a reoccurring series, new games, old games, any type of games we want to talk about. We want to make sure that we can go as deep dive as we did right here. Like I said in the front of the podcast, you can find us YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Cast, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, and Audible. Please like the podcast. Please follow the Twitter account, Slice of Gaming. Really helps us out. Like I said, we're growing. And that's about it. Say bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Bye.
See you.